Leaked files reveal that Leaked files reveal that Nebraska tried to come back to the Big 12 Conference. Could they still do it? This is the Locked On Big 12 Locked On Kansas State crossover.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to a Locked On Big 12 Locked On Kansas State crossover. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. And there is Christian Rao, Locked On Kansas State. Thanks for making our shows your first listen every single day. Hey, did you know that Nebraska got caught? Leaked files for the school trying to return to the Big 12 Conference. What does that mean for this league and the Big 10 losing one of its stalwart brands? Granted, a brand that sucks at football, but still a stalwart brand because of how big the brand is. Then, hello. This is the worst way too early Big 12 ranking of all time. This is bad. I saw a list that doesn't even include Kansas State on the list of way too early Big 12 standings as it pertains to next season in the conference in football. And then finally, Jerome Tang. Will the man get paid, or will Kansas State save a dime or two but lose face in the process? If you hit subscribe, we can keep our jobs. This is nuts, Christian. Matt McCaster posts that in Bill Moos, in his book, fully admitted actively trying to get Nebraska out of the Big 10 back to the Big 12. And he takes out snippets here saying that after they joined the Big 10, the long travel and all of that, said, you know what? We want to go back to the Big 12. It just had 10 members. What if I can go call Bob Bowlsby and get us back in? And what if I can go and get another school to go with it? Because we please just come back to Big 12. Christian, I think, and that was a couple of years ago, I think now might be an even better time for Nebraska to pack it in, tuck the tail between the legs, come back to the Big 12 Conference, and try to be a stalwart in sports again, because the brand is there. They're Big Red. They just suck at kind of every major sport.
Yeah, and if they hated travel then, imagine how they hate it now with the additions of Oregon and Washington into the mix of the Big 10. It makes a lot of sense to bring Nebraska back into the Big 8/Big 12. Bring them back to the Big 8 standards of what they were when they were in this conference. They're a historical piece of this conference, and they have a lot of already ties when it comes to some of the original members, Kansas State being one of them, Iowa State being one, and then of Colorado, of course, their ties. There's so many different rivalries that can be added into it. Geographically, it makes sense, especially if you're going to divide the conference schedule into, putting certain teams against certain people for protected rivalries, if you will. It just makes a lot of sense to bring Nebraska back to the Big 12. And you mentioned it. They've been pretty bad in football. They've been pretty good in basketball lately, but they've been pretty bad when it comes to football, really, since they left the Big 12 and went over to the Big 10. And now you have all these other schools they have to fight against. They're not a premier, prestigious brand, at least in the eyes probably of the Big 10. Yeah. If they came back to the Big 12, would they be able to compete? I don't know if they'd be able to compete at the same level they are right now. They would come back to a much more powerful conference than what they left. But I think it would just make a lot more sense if them returning back, facing those rivalries, not having to worry about the fact of, okay, maybe we go to Washington or UCLA one weekend for a conference game. The farthest you'd go is what? Orlando? I think you'd be okay.
Yeah, there will be people who are like, but we're really good at basketball. Still haven't won a March Madness game.
No.
Since anyone.
Give them credit for the winning streak they had. That was impressive. But other than that, no, they still haven't done that.
Yeah, still haven't done a March Madness win. And people that are in their 50s have never seen that. Pretty crazy. On top of that, here, Christian, the dissenters will hear you say that Nebraska would be coming back to a stronger Big 12 and they'd get mad. But yeah, right now, sans Oklahoma, everybody in the Big 12 that was here and relevant is still here and relevant. I don't think Nebraska goes from 7-5 in the Big 10 to 10-2 in the Big 12. They're still going to lose to Arizona State. They're still going to lose to Houston. They're going to lose to certainly Texas Tech and BYU. And they're bound to lose games you don't expect them to. It's kind of the brand that Nebraska has built the last couple of seasons under Matt Rule, is just complete disappointment down. And that is, something to highlight in how this move would help the Big 12 from a brand standpoint, but not give Nebraska necessarily more automatic wins. Yes, for some reason, America still respects Nebraska as this thing, this entity, this sellout streak that everybody loves to talk about. But Christian, I don't think Nebraska could walk through the front door and dominate the way their fans probably feel as though they could.
No, they couldn't. And look, they have one of the most dedicated fan bases in the Midwest. That would be a huge for the brand for the Big 12 to return, something that I think the Big 10 doesn't respect. So that would be something that would be great for the conference if they did return. But look, if we can go even farther back to when Nebraska was a premier program in football, where they had a 29-game winning streak against Kansas State, for the record, when that was broken in 1998. Shout out Michael Bishop for that game where they won 40-30, huge game in the regards of Kansas State. But that was the feeling of the Big 8/Big 12 back then. It's nowhere like that. The competition level is so much better now compared to what it was when Nebraska was a premier team in this conference. If they came in, I believe they'd be right smack in the middle. I mean, look at what happened last year. They were fighting a game back and forth between Cincinnati, and Cincinnati was nowhere near a competitive team in this conference. And that was, now you're talking about, if they come into the Big 12 conference, they're going to have a much more competitive schedule from games 1 to 12. They won't be able to play two MAC teams and an FCS team like they're doing in non-conference this year. They're going to have to compete day in and day out in a dog-eat-dog conference, probably arguably the most competitive conference in college football, whether you agree with it or not. When it comes to bids in the college football playoff, every game is a crapshoot. Every game is a potential who knows of an upset. If Nebraska is willing to do that and come back, I think they'd be a good fit to return to the Big 12.
Yeah, love that. Hey, coming up, don't love this. The worst preseason poll of all time. This is a Locked On Big 12, Locked On Kansas State crossover. Why are the Wildcats being left off altogether? And Oklahoma State at 11th? I don't think so. That is when we return. Locked On Big 12, Locked On Kansas State. Howdy, friends. You know what I love? Mazda. Here's Clea Butler.
I'm Clea Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. South Carolina rolled past Ole Miss 85-48 to clinch a share of the SEC regular season title and lock down the number 1 seed in the conference tournament. The Gamecocks extended their win streak over Ole Miss to 21 straight. UCLA dominated Wisconsin 80-60 to secure its first outright Big Ten regular season championship in program history. The Bruins improved to 27-1 overall and remain unbeaten in conference play. And number 12 TCU stormed back from a 13-point fourth quarter deficit to beat Iowa State 80-73. The Horned Frogs now sit alone atop the Big 12 standings and are 1 win away from clinching another regular season conference crown. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
That is Christian Rao of Locked On Kansas State. Hey, if you're an everyday listener of either of these shows, go to lockedonbig12.supercast.com or lockedonkansasstate.supercast.com and prove, hey, I'm an everydayer. Right now for $5, the Everydayer subscription keeps us on the air and gives you ad-free listening with the Everydayer Club. Christian Rao. Oh, no. I found it. I found the single worst piece of media I think I've ever consumed. This is Top Tier Baylor, a Twitter account who put together their way too early odds for Big 12 football next season. Number 1, Texas Tech, 25 to 30% chance to win the conference. I think those numbers are actually a little low, by the way. I have more confidence in Texas Tech. And number 2, BYU. Those two teams winning the conference or being in the conference championship, that makes sense. I can see that. They have Houston in the top 3. I would never put Arizona above Arizona State next year, even with Fafita returning, but then all hell breaks loose. Christian, they have UCF at 6. UCF still doesn't really have a quarterback. They have Cincinnati at 7, still doesn't have a quarterback. Iowa State at 8, they lost their entire roster. Colorado at 9, followed by Baylor at 10 and Oklahoma State at 11. And then they just left off the other 5 teams in the Big 12 Conference. There's just no Utah even on here. No Kansas State or Kansas even included in this. Can we put this down as maybe the stupidest poll that we've ever seen as it pertains to the Big 12?
Yeah, and this is a good chance to remind you that maybe you shouldn't always just focus and rely on AI, right? Like, for example, number 9 at Colorado. Who is Brady Travis? Who is that?
He returns.
Interesting things.
He returns to quarterback, though.
He returns. Try Googling Colorado Brady Travis. See what comes up. Nothing. Tom Brady and Travis Hunter things for the record. Yep. This is definitely wild. When you look at things, Texas Tech, BYU, it makes a lot of sense that they're number 1 and number 2. I think they would be preseason favorites if the media did a preseason poll. That would make a ton of sense. I'm sure Locked On Podcast Network, we're going to do some sort of preseason poll, and I would not be shocked if they are number 1 and number 2 when we all vote on it coming up this fall. But you're right. Look, I might be a little skittish myself personally on Utah upcoming this season just because of the coaching changes, but nowhere do I think they're going to be below 11th place inside the conference. And then you're missing Kansas State as well. Colin Klein, they're not going to be worse than 6-6 this year. And that alone is not going to be below the top 10. They're going to be competitive. I would even say they're going to be in the top 6 of the conference. I don't think they're going to go to Arlington, but they're going to be certainly competitive. There's a ton of things you can pull from this and just scratch your head on the worst take of all time.
Yeah, no TCU included in this either, or West Virginia. Yep. I think both of those teams can compete this year. TCU is perennial 8-4. That deserves to be somewhere on the list of top 11 teams in the Big 12 Conference.
Great bowl game without Josh Hoover.
Yeah. And I think West Virginia, by the way, will do what Houston did in year 2 under Willie Fritz and win a few games. Maybe they go 7-5 or 8-4 and surprise folks. Their schedule's not super easy, but they could. What I want to know, you're the Kansas State guy. They had the number 6 transfer portal in the Big 12 Conference per 24/7. If you asked on 3 when they compare the players who came in versus players that went out, K-State actually looks really good. Top end of the Big 12. If we're talking strictly transfer portal, which today in college football, that's kind of what this conversation is predicated on, Kansas State's in actually a pretty good spot.
Yeah, I think they really are. If you look at Kansas State's transfer portal, if you're from Manhattan, if you're a Kansas State fan, initially you're heartbroken because you're losing some of the key defensive players in Austin Romaine going to Texas Tech, Chidi Obiizor, Toby Asusami going to the national champs Indiana. You're missing some of the ones that you were really excited to see what they could develop and turn into. And unfortunately, some of those are going to play on Sundays, but they will not get their name called in the NFL draft as a Kansas State player because they're going to transfer on. And then, of course, Jace Brown leaving to LSU doesn't feel great either. But the players that are coming in, it's not just from FCS schools or from anything like that. They're coming in from SEC schools. They're coming in from Big Ten. They're coming in from ACC, other Power 4, and from the Big 12 as well. Colin Klein did a lot of work to bring in the right pieces, and he didn't settle for just saying year 1, I'm going to just fill the holes, put a Band-Aid on this, and then slowly build up. No, he's ready to make this program prestigious right away. And I think that has a lot to do with the emotion that he feels about this program, the fact that he wants to bring the new old school back, that Bill Snyder years back, and what he did. The rebuild. There's, the entire national championship run of Indiana, all they could do was talk about comparing it to what Bill Snyder did the entire time. Colin Klein is going to try and make that 6-6 record that Chris Kleiman left us as the worst feeling we have in the next decade for Kansas State. And I think he did a really good job of fitting in. I'm excited for what they do. There are some concerns, of course, but man, the weapons that they have surrounded Avery Johnson, it's exciting. And I really do feel like we are going to see a breakout year from him finally. And it's the last chance you can do it, but I think we're finally going to see it, Drake.
I think people are missing in the Big 12 conversation how many of these middle of the pack schools like a Kansas State or a Utah, I say middle of the pack strategically for Utah, and honestly for Kansas State, I think everybody outside of Texas Tech and BYU could be considered middle of the pack next season.
I think that's fair.
For Utah, they might start 6-0. Their schedule is a cupcake to begin the season. For Kansas State, Nicholls, win. Washington State, win. Tulane, win. Cincinnati, that's a win. But you're 4-0. And even if you lose to Houston, it's a home game. Even if you do lose, you'll beat Kansas. You're 5-1. That's a great way to jumpstart your season. Oh, and by the way, you avoid Texas Tech and BYU. The question for me would be, Christian, if we're talking about the best teams in the Big 12, Is there a way that Kansas State, heck, is there a way that Arizona State or Houston are actually better than BYU or Texas Tech? Or does the conference run through those two yet again?
I think Texas Tech is still the one. I feel the same way I felt about Texas Tech this year than I did about Arizona State the last year. They are considered the favorite until they're proven wrong. And obviously Arizona State was proven wrong last year because of injuries. This year, Texas Tech feels different, though, because they know what was needed of them. The trenches were fine last year. They built up what they needed to do. The quarterback was the issue. Is Sorsby the answer? Right? He did a lot with less last year at Cincinnati. Now he's going to have the weapons surrounding him. Can they finally be that Big 12 powerhouse that they're hoping to be, that can actually make some sort of noise inside the college football playoff, something that the Big 12 has struggled with over the last 2 seasons? When it comes to, can anybody else compete with them? Maybe a BYU or something like that. Maybe Kansas State can do that. I don't think the expectation is Arlington, but I would not be shocked if they could find themselves, as you mentioned, 5-1, maybe even 6-0. I think that Houston game is very important, by the way, because look, 2 years ago, Kansas State started 7-1, and then they lost to Houston. The wheels fell off. That's kind of what the fall of Chris Kleiman and the belief of him happened. It was the Houston game. It's the Big 12 home opener for Colin Klein against a team that really kind of ruined it for the last coach. So I think that's a very important game that we're not really discussing. But speaking of that Houston Cougars, I think if anybody can compete with Texas Tech and BYU, Parker's going to love me for this, Connor Wegman and Houston Cougars, I think can do it. I really actually like what they returned. I think Willie Fritz is a hell of a coach. I love what they did in the portal as well. Their recruiting class is fantastic. They have a quarterback in waiting that is one of the best in the country. I really like where Houston sits right now.
Willie Fritz is, drum roll, please. Hold on. Wait a second. I never get to do this.
Do it. Love it.
Chris Kleiman.
Oh, I don't hate that take.
What? No. Yeah, man. Wins at the lower level, wins at a high level at the lower level, comes to a school, first 3 years, damn good ball coach. Does it last more than 5, 6, 7 years? Maybe not. But the first few years, pretty cool, man. Pretty good.
This could be the inflection point for Willie Fritz, because this is the changing of the guard, if you will, because this is Connor Wegman's last year. This is a big transfer portal for them, and he finally built a huge recruiting class. If it falls on his face, then yeah, I completely agree with that take. But if they take off and they get themselves to Arlington or maybe even farther this year, then I think he's surpassed the takes that he's a Chris Kleiman. He's above that.
Interesting. Because Kleiman did that year 3, right? Arlington championship. And then, obviously he was good. He's going to be one of the Kansas State coaches of all time. That's great. He did it fine.
Better than Ron Prince. And you take that all day. You take that to the bank.
Bingo. Yeah. Bill Snyder didn't have to come out of retirement again. And so you're going to be okay. Coming up, Jerome Tang. Is he going to payday or not? This is Locked On Big 12, Locked On Kansas State. Hey, today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time's where I go, man, to get tickets to any and all events. What is crazy about Game Time is that I mentioned Bill Snyder. You can go see, like if Bill Snyder's speaking at a convention, you can go to Game Time and just get tickets, like search Bill Snyder and be like, oh, great, I can go meet Bill Snyder there thanks to Game Time. And with college basketball season right here, right now, and the biggest stretch almost here, Game Time gives you the advantage with constant innovation. Game Time guarantee means 100% legitimate tickets. Seat view before you buy them. Take the guesswork out of buying college basketball tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use code Locked On. $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem code Locked On for $20 off. Download Game Time. Do it today. Today's show is also brought to you by Bang. It's the reason I'm awake right now. It's the reason I'm awake most of the time. 5-hour energy. There is something about a 5-hour energy that keeps me going. Welcome to 5-hour energy flavor draft. 18 different flavors to choose from. The number one overall pick. With the number one overall pick in the 5-hour energy flavor draft. Drake Toll selects strawberry banana. What? Tropical delight. Strawberry flavor. Soft, mellow banana. Smooth, creamy. I would describe it as like a fruit smoothie. Low acidity, too. My tummy hurts sometimes. The low acidity is good. Gentle and a sweet aftertaste. 5-Hour Energy Shots give you a boost with zero sugar. Find your new favorite 5-Hour Energy Shots available online at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. 5-Hour Energy. Christian Rao of Locked On Kansas State. You will not be paying Jerome Tang $18 million, $19 million.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
I will not be doing so either. No one affiliated with the Locked On Podcast Network should have to do such. But will the Kansas State Athletic Department, their university, the administration, will they have to do that very thing, or can they get out of this scot-free?
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting, right? And it's hard for me to make a take on this because it's so I think it's so two-sided. I think you can look at it from the fan point, and then you look at it from the legal standpoint of what may be actually happening, the black and white. From the fan standpoint, as someone who covers Kansas State every single day, right? You know that Jerome Tang has not succeeded as a head coach of the basketball team for the last 3 years. He's gambled so hard in the transfer portal the last 2 seasons, it just hasn't worked out. The Coleman Hawkins experience didn't work. The PJ Haggerty experience, he's doing great. He's like the second leading scorer in the country, but everything around him didn't work. So he gets fired. The $18.7 million buyout obviously on the table, but the cause thing happens. And the reason they bring it up is public disrepute, embarrassment, ridicule of the program. Apparently that's the lingo that's in the contract. If that's the case, if that's something that Jerome Tang signed, his agents and Jerome Tang allowed in the contract, then in my opinion, although I don't really think this is a good thing, but I think it's pretty soft, I think it does fall under the fact of you embarrassed the program, saying that you took the names off the back of the jersey. You said they don't belong here. You said you're embarrassed. As much as I think that's soft, I think it could legally fall under that category. And if that's the case, I don't know if he gets a buyout. I think we wind up ending with a settlement personally. Maybe they give him the good old Sam Pittman treatment he got at Arkansas, where he gets a settlement. It's a less number. He doesn't have to go find another job if he wants. But either way, it's a wild ride that's happening right now.
So if I am any respectable, and this has nothing to do, I feel bad for Kansas State fans because they're good people, man. When they're in the comment section, they're awesome and interacting with them. I've been to games that Kansas State's been featured in, and the fan bases, they're just saying they're good people. That's what I'm trying to get at here. I hate that there will be top end basketball coaches, some big names in the sport, some good coaches that see this and go, I don't want to touch that. I don't want to go. I do not want to go there because I could be fired in 3 years and fired for $0 and on my ass and have nothing to protect me. Do fans feel a little spited by this, a little embarrassed by this decision, or is there universal support from those who wear purple?
No, it's definitely a polarizing topic, and it's definitely divided. There are a few that say just pay him his money, just get on with it, move on. Obviously, that's easy to say when it's not coming out of your checkbook. And then there's others that say, no, he doesn't deserve a dime for what they did, but they're obviously focusing on the performance side of it, not what the black and white of the paper potentially says. So it's definitely a polarizing topic. There's no doubt about it. I will say this, though. One thing that is happening already, whether we like it or not, is there is a waterfall effect that's happening across college athletics, college basketball immediately because of the Jerome Tang firing. For what Gene Taylor said in his statement, we're seeing it happening at UCLA. Nick Cronin made some comments to a journalist just a week ago, and then the next day had to apologize. He had to apologize because I'm guaranteeing you that he probably was spoken behind the scenes and saying, hey, look, remember what just happened over in Manhattan, Kansas, with the fact that there's some lingo in the contract? We don't want to be in that same boat. And Mick Cronin right now is potentially in the hot seat. And if they're looking for any reasons to move on from him, that could be one of them. So I think he went out and said a public apology to save his butt, if I'm being completely honest. But there's been reports of some big name coaches that are already showing interest, some from the SEC, some mid-major coaches as well that are very highly touted, that have a lot of interest in Kansas State. Because, almost every coach that has been here has at least gone to the Elite Eight. It shows that this is a program that is willing to give the resources to at least try and win. They haven't done the whole thing, but at least they can try and win. You can't say that about a lot of other programs, especially in the Power 4 level.
if you were to nail down kind of that wish list of top 2 or 3 names that are reasonable, kind of that you're hearing, who looks feasible for Kansas State right now?
My favorite candidate is Jared Calhoun of Utah State. I love what he's doing for Utah State. I think that there's going to be a big trying to get him because they're going to be taking the jump to the Pac-12 next year. There's going to probably potentially be a spot for him to make some sort of extension. I think he is going to be a fantastic Power 4, Power 5, however you want to look at in college basketball, head coach. I think he's going to be one that makes the promotion this next cycle. I think Josh Scherz is also going to have his picking as well, the head coach of St. Louis, what he's done. Those are the 2 mid-major coaches that I really like. But there are a couple other names that you might not like, at least what they've done in the past, but there are a couple names that are in the power level that are maybe trying to make their next step up. Chris Beard of Ole Miss, Chris Jans of Mississippi State. Some of those names are popping up, potentially wanting to get back in the mix and getting back to a team that can compete at a level that couldn't go far in the NCAA tournament. Look, Kansas State, if you're just only watched college basketball for the last 3 years, you won't believe what I'm saying. But if you've watched college basketball for the last 20, 30 years, Kansas State is a team that can go deep. They have been to the Elite 8 multiple times, and that's nothing to bat an eye at. Just because you've only got to Elite 8, we all know how college basketball works. You know, once you get to the tournament, anything can happen. It's just getting to the tournament, and that's something that just can't fly. They have to get a coach that can turn this program around right away, get them to the NCAA tournament. He's going to have a complete slate to do it because there's already rumors that almost every player, if not every player, intends to enter the transfer portal for Kansas State. If you get it someone like a Chris Beard or a Chris Jans that is willing to take that step, or in my opinion, a Jared Calhoun, who I think is a powerhouse that has tournament experience at that mid-major level, I think Kansas State can get themselves back to being one of the top 5 teams in the conference. And that is nothing to bat an eye at because you're going to get probably 8 or 9 in the tournament this year.
Love it. Love it. Christian Rao, Locked On Kansas State. Where can more listeners of Locked On Big 12 find your work?
Everywhere. Just kidding. No, Locked On Kansas State. We drop 2 to 3 episodes a day. K-State Kickstart in the morning, your main episode, and then we always drop a bonus, whether it's a reaction or something like that. So anywhere you listen to podcasts, we got Locked On Kansas State on YouTube and on social media, anywhere, those good old socials, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, X at Locked On K-State.
No one does Kansas State better. No one does it more frequently and with consistency than Christian Rao. This has been and always will be Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day, a crossover with Kansas State and Dose Grande. Awesome.